So now that I've got the top glued up, it's going to be sanding this, just making this all nice, taking these sharp edges off, making it all nice before I start gluing up. So I've got all these bits to do, all these bits to do, and all those bits to do. And it's good to have a sit down. I've got my radio, so we put my radio on. I've got my little light here which just helps you to see things. I've got my glasses so you can see all the problems, and I shall be sanding for the next 49 million years, I think. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so as I said, 49 million years of sanding. So I'm just looking for my little sanding block there, and immediately I see a problem. And it's a little bit of tear out, a little splinter that's come off the side of that leg. So I've just popped some glue in there, clamped it up. I'm going to glue that up, get that little splinter to lie down. And I'm into the sanding. I've got the radio on because I'm not making a lot of noise. So I say the radio, it's a podcast, that Peter Crouch podcast with, oh no, it's the Therapy Crouch, sorry, with his wife Abby Clancy. Anyway, it's quite funny. As I'm going through this, I'm sort of trying to figure out better ways to get the sanding done. And I just found that popping it in the old clamp there, in the vise, just made it easier because it wasn't slipping around on the table. With that chisel, what I'm doing is removing all the little bits of squeeze out of the glue, little tiny bits of glue that just ruin it and make it look a bit rubbish. Trying to get as close to perfect as I can. If you've been on this channel for a while, you know that me and perfection don't really go together that well, but I'm trying, and I think I'm getting better. I'm trying to be a bit neater and a bit more sort of professional looking, but whilst maintaining that Woodsy's Woodshop rustic look and feel. So spending a lot of time there in those little joints, those little corners, because that's a real problem, because that's where the glue gets squeezed out and you can't get your sandpaper in there very easily. As I'm sat here now, I'm thinking maybe there's something I could do with like tape or something when I do these sorts of joints. And obviously I had to put a lot of glue in there as well because my mortise and tenon joints weren't cut properly really, because I made my tenons too small because of my chisel size. But that was something that I learned, which you'll have seen in a previous video. So again, yeah, here I am just sort of sanding, trying to get it as nice as I possibly can. Got my respirator thing on there because there was a lot of dust being thrown up, even though I'm just using hand power. It's still a lot of dust particles, and I am trying to look after my lungs. Yeah. More sanding, getting the ends there, trying to make the ends nice, a bit more chisel work, a bit more glue to come out. I think I'm using 100, something like that, 100 grit to start with, and then buffing it over with 150. Not worried too much about getting a super smooth finish, but just making it nice to touch. A little bit of texture I find is nice. I see that people like to run their fingers over wood grain. It's a bit of a strange thing, I suppose, but if you make it too glassy, you may as well get a plastic table, you know. That's my feeling on it anyway. You can disagree, but yeah, I like to be able to sort of, it's smooth, it's nice, it's tactile. You're not going to catch your clothes or your fingers on any splinters or anything, but you can still feel a little bit of wood grain. And as I'm selling you that, I'm sat at my desk that I made. It was the first desk I ever made, and I'm running my fingers over the grain and looking at a scratch that's in it. Little text message there, don't know who that was to, probably the lads. And more sanding. I mean, I'm bored of it now. Are you bored? Maybe I'll cut this bit out. But it is a lot of work, but I think it is worth it. There you go, look, just nice big sweeps. Just taking those sharp corners off as well, because those little corners on these sort of long pieces, if you run your finger down them, as I've done, you can cut yourself almost like a paper cut, a wood cut. I suppose you'd say. You can see though, even in time lapse, you can see all those black lines coming off. Even the underside gets a look in. Noticing any problems, just smoothing everything off, making everything nice. And now I'm doing the long strips, and I'm starting here, I'm doing them one at a time because I'm a good boy. And I'm thinking, yeah, but this is quite easy. So maybe I could do more than one at a time. I'm sure I'll do that at some point. Still doing one at a time at this point. These are all the little joining pieces. Changing the sandpaper. Getting a bit organised. You can see all the dust accumulating on the top of the desk there. So that just shows you the amount of dust you generate even when you're hand sanding. The shorts are all covered in dust as well. So flying through these, it's dead easy because I'm sanding them before construction, which is another lesson I've learned. I think I'm going to, in future when I make anything like this, the pieces are going to get sanded before any glue up is done, and then it will just be a case of removing any squeeze out, which if I tape the joint will just be a case of pulling the tape off. And there they all are. Now these are a bit flatter and a bit wider, so I'm thinking, yeah, I can get the old orbital sander out, and I'm doing it there with the old-fashioned dust collector. See that little plastic box that's on the orbital sander. We've got some little woodworm holes here, so just filling those in with AC glue and some hardener, and using a toothpick to sort of shove the glue in, because what happens is you put the glue in, a little air bubble gets trapped, so you put that in, pop the air bubble, the glue dribbles in a bit further, you pop another air bubble, it dribbles in a bit further, and you repeat until it's actually full up, and then you can put your hardener on and it just hardens. Yes, and I was discovering lots of little holes, and the AC glue doesn't hide them. In fact, you could argue it almost highlights it because you get a little black dot, but at least it's not a hole, and you do get that smooth surface. So I'm just sanding them off on probably 100 or 120, something like that, just to get the rough stuff off. Going a lot quicker, and then look, I remember, wait a minute, I've got dust extraction. Why am I not using my dust extraction? Which is noisy, but you know, it's worth doing. And I remember feeling a bit of a fool because I still forget that I've got dust extraction now. And it fit. I didn't think it would fit onto the orbital sander because I didn't think that it's an iron hole. I buy a lot of stuff because it's decent but cheap. I just assumed that box, that plastic box you can see at the bottom of the screen there, which is what it came with, I assumed that would have some proprietary fitting. Turns out it's standard. You pull the plastic box off, stick your hose on, job done. You can also see now the manufacturing process is speeding up because I'm sticking, what, five bits of wood in at once. So ooh, look at that, 8 bits of wood in at once, and just getting it done. And it just quick whiz over with the old orbital, bosh, and it's done. So it didn't take me 49 million years in the end. I did it fairly quickly. The fiddly bit, of course, was all the legs that I'd already glued up, because if you've seen a previous video, I had a little debate with myself about whether I should do it before or after I glued it up. The answer is you do it before. So just going through all the slats now, sanding the AC glue, giving the legs a once over. So this is, I must have gone up to 150 grit now. Just giving them a quick whiz over, nothing too drastic. I've done all the hard stuff before, so it's just a little quick whiz over just to finish them off. Remove the clamp. So this one was the one that I clamped up right at the start. By now the glue had dried enough, you know, an hour or two, and it was dried enough to take a sanding, and I've just gone straight in with the 150 because I just think that's good enough. Now that was a heat gun and some water, so I've got a dent in the wood, probably where the clamp was or something. If you put water on wood and heat it, you soften up the, I think it's called lignin, which is the sort of glue, the natural glue that is inside wood that holds all the wood fibres together. You sort of warm that up and almost steam it, and it pops the little dents out. So I don't know where I got that from, some top tip somewhere. There we go. It didn't take us along with the power tools. There's all my bits and bobs there. My short slats. Oh, they sound like components now. It's not like junky bits of wood. It's straight and true and clean pieces of items. It's components. That's what it is now. Components. So those are my components. Look at that. And then these are my other components. And then they got to go together. So let me pop you down over here slightly. So these two bits now have that, and oh, this is impossible. Because my mortises and tenons are not tight. It's what they're supposed to be, but they aren't. But hey, I learned because I made my tenons too small. Because the smallest chisel I had was 1/4 inch, and my tenons are less than that. But anyway, look, it'll all go together and it'll glue up. So there we are. Look at that. And then that's part of a table. Yeah, don't really know how to. That's the way I want to do it, isn't it? Yes! So I've got to do that. And that with that. And that. And then I can get that and that. That. So yeah, here we are at the glue up stage, which I sort of do on the floor because I've got more room and I've got all these big clamps. Before I did this glue up, I did have to get my chisel out and tweak all the little joints so that they sat flush and deep enough, and there was a good, a good shape to them. But I cut all that out because you don't want to sit and watch me take millimeters of wood off with my little chisel. So anyway, I've gone straight to this glue up sequence now, which obviously takes a lot longer in real life because you can see I'm going backwards and forwards to the bench just to try and make sure that everything fits nicely. I'm trying to minimize the amount of glue I'm getting everywhere. Not doing a very good job with that because it squeezes out all over the place, and then you put the clamps on and you can't get to one side of the joint, but which is why I'm going in future, as I said, I'm going to try tape. And there we go. That's the first boxy section done. I think it's come together fairly well. Oh, I haven't checked it for square, but it's better be square. Oh, that's bloody spot on, mate. That is spot on, son. Lovely. Some of that glue on. Yeah, so yeah, looks good, looks good, looks good. I'm very excited. So, it won't be long, we'll be finishing, as in applying finish. As I said to my friend who this table is for whom this table is for, he said, "Is this like the most complicated thing you've done?" And I said, "Mate, by far." How many pieces are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. It's about over 30 pieces of stuff. But yeah, think it's coming together well. There's the top, there's one of the bottoms. Got the other ones to do. There'll be two there. Oh yeah. There they are. There they are. And there's the bits for them. But due to well, I've got those big, massive, heavy clamps. But hey, I've been at it all day, so I'm ready to take a break now. So again, if you have been watching, thank you very much.